We are live. Rick has sent us a message already. Hello, Rick. We'll see who joins. I didn't advertise that I'm going to have a special guest today, so hopefully, people will like that. We have a special guest, like you said, like years ago, 4 years ago, when we were here together for a couple months. Hello, Yankee. Welcome. How's audio, video? Can you hear us fine? Hello, Shay. Good to see you. How's our connection? Can you hear us? Can you see us? Any problems? One of the issues I've had a fair amount recently is YouTube and like the chat stuff. People will type things, but it doesn't go through. So these days it's sometimes it's like, did nobody type anything, or is it just not going through? But Yankee says everything is good, very good. Ah, hello, Kim. Good to see you. Bunte, are you in Queens? Yes, we are in Queens right now with the Indonesian Buddhist family of New York City. Will we be leading a meditation? We should be, Kim. Hello, Jay. So you can see that, right? All right. So we'll get started in about a minute. Hello, Maria. Welcome. Hello, Gregory. Good to have you with us in the evening. Gregory's a regular of my morning monastery experience. He's there almost every morning, Monday through Friday. Right. I think we can get started. Share screen. Share the chanting book. So this is going to be fun. Two of us trying to chant this because this is a sutta. This is not like a regular chant. So
Yeah, it's just winging it. It's actually a nice skill to develop. You can kind of figure out a rhythm eventually.
Yeah. All right. Hello, Risa. Welcome. So we'll start Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Savatini Danam Ekamantam Titoko Kamado Deva Buddho Bhagavantam Etadavocha Dukaram Bhagava Sudukaram Bhagavati Dukaram Vapi Karonti Kamadati Bhagava Seka Sila Mahita Tittata Nagari Upetasa Tutti Hoti Sukhavahati Dulabha Bhagava Yadidam Tuttiti Dulabham Vapi Labanti Kamadati Bhagava Chitta Vupasamerata Yesam Divacha Ratocha Bhavanaya Rato Manoti Dusamahadahang Bhagava Yadidan Chittanti Dusamadahang Vapi Samadahanti Kamadati Bhagava Indriyu Pasamerata Te Chetva Machuno Jalang Ariya Gachanti Kamadati Dugamo Bhagava Visamo Magoti Dugame Visame Vapi Ariya Gachanti Kamada Anariya Visame Magge Papatanti Avansira Ariyanang Sammo Maggo Ariya Visame Samadhi. All right, English with Kamada. At Savatthi, standing to one side, the god Kamada said to the Buddha, "It's too hard, Blessed One. It's just too hard." "They do it even though it's hard," said the Buddha to Kamada, the stable trainees with ethics and immersion. For one who has entered the homeless life, contentment brings happiness. Such contentment, Blessed One, is hard to find. They find it even though it's hard, said the Buddha to Kamada. Those who love peace of mind, whose minds love to meditate day and night. But it's hard, Blessed One, to immerse this mind in samadhi. They become immersed in samadhi even though it's hard, said the Buddha to Kamada. Those who love calming the faculties, having cut through the net of death, the noble ones, Kamada, go on their way. But this path, Blessed One, is rough and hard to travel. Though it's rough and hard to travel, the noble ones, Kamada, go on their way. The ignoble fall head first on a rough path, but the path of the noble ones is smooth. for the noble ones are smooth amid thereof. Sa. Right? All right, friends. Well, it is Monday night, and that means it's time for another festival of Dhamma with the Maggasekha community. It's time for another Dhammapalooza. And this week we have a special guest who, when I first came on Thursday to the Indonesian Buddhist family of New York here, I didn't even know that Bante Pamuto was going to be joining me for a couple of days. So Bante, if you want to just, for people who might not know you, just introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Venerable Pamuto. So I've been around since 2008. I started at Abhayagiri Monastery in California, and I was trained in the Thai tradition. And after 7 years there, I started to move about, a fellow nomad. And that Bhante J and I overlapped the first time during the pandemic in 2020.
2021.
Was it 2021?
Yeah,
Yes.
well, January and February is when we were here together, when we were doing Dhammapaloozas together. Yeah.
So we were doing Dhammapaloozas at the time when nothing else was happening. We were pretty much locked down. Everybody was in masks. And yeah, so it's been 4 years since then. And mostly I've been in the Northeast, though for the past year and a half, I've been down in Austin, Texas.
All right. Okay, friends. So, as usual, and I didn't, with all the moving and everything, I didn't have time to really think about how I want Dhammapalooza to go. As I was saying, we might be moving away from the kind of just letting the community decide how things are going to go, because it's been a little bit quiet these days. Not too many of us on the stream, but for one last time, at least we can see how things will go with the community. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask either one of us, you can put that in the chat. If you have any topics you'd like either one of us to discuss or both of us to discuss, you can put that in the chat. And if nobody has anything to add, well, we could always read a sutta. Maybe we can play some. So one of the new things that was developed by a couple people over time here is we play this game called Sutta Roulette, where we have people just blurt out random numbers or even words, and then we go on Sutta Central and we put it in there and see what suttas pop up. So it's pretty funny sometimes, pretty interesting. You never know what you're going to get. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat for the next couple of minutes. And if not, nobody has anything, I see we already have at least a quick question.
Weather.
Yes, Rick is asking, did we have a winter storm? Yeah, I don't think we got, like more than an inch, if that. I'm not sure. Last time I looked there, it was definitely sticking, but it wasn't like a huge storm or anything like that.
Well, I have one if nobody else has jumped in yet. Shall we do a commentary on the sutta we just read?
All right, sure. Yeah.
So I didn't get a very long look at it.
Let's see. Let's
So is this from the Devaputta Samyutta?
Do I have? I don't have the actual.
Samyutta Nikaya, yeah. Samyutta Nikaya 2. I guess that's either Deva or Devaputta. So we've got one of these.
Devaputta Samyutta. Yep.
And one of these that Deva drops in and says a couple of words and.
Yeah, this was actually I put this in. So I was actually making this chanting book at that time. I started it in November when I was here, November 2020. I was here November, December, January, February. You came in
January,
January, February.
February, and March, and April.
Yeah,
Bante Santi came in that back half. Yeah, I guess he was there March and April.
I guess. Yeah, I don't know. But around the time I was putting together the Maggasekha chanting book, one of the people, I think it was James, who used to be one of our sutta hunters, a young gentleman who used to be part of the Maggasekha community on the Discord for years. And he brought this sutta to my attention, and I read it, and I was like, this is one of the most awesome suttas. This needs to be in the chanting book. Just simply because of, you have this being, you have this being coming up to the Buddha and saying it's really hard. And the Buddha's like, well, okay, yeah, they do it anyway. It's like there's an acknowledgement that the practice is not easy, right? And this is especially something that people in the beginning have this impression that it's supposed to be calm and peaceful, and if it's not, then they're not doing it right, etc. But you have this sutta where it's hard to get immersion. It's hard for the mind to be quiet. It's hard for this. It's hard for that. And the Buddha's basically acknowledges, yes, but yes, but you do it anyway. It doesn't matter if it's hard, right? He's like, the Buddha is not like enabling this guy's complaining, basically.
Yeah, notice the shutting them down. In improv comedy, they say yes and, right?
Mhm.
And that's what struck me is the Buddha's not saying it's like, be content, Kamada. How hard is that? He's saying, yeah, it's hard, but it's worthwhile. But we do it anyway.
Yeah, so the things that he's asking, he just starts out with it's just too hard. So basically like the whole thing. And then it goes contentment is hard to find, immersing the mind in samadhi is hard to do, the path itself is rough, right? So it's just basically, all the aspects of the path are hard. But we see this in many different places in the end here, where it says the noble ones are smooth amid the rough. Like you say in the Bhavana Vandananda daily chanting, that's a part of that, is like the path of the noble ones is smooth. It's almost like, it's like a rocky path, and the rest of us are like feeling every bump, but the noble ones are like floating gently over the path. It's just in like a nice, straight, even path. But yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it is perspective. So when you have a noble goal, then everything you're doing makes sense. You have a direction you're traveling. The up and down doesn't really matter. Like if you're heading to another town, you're not thinking, oh, I'm going to have to go over so many hills to get there. You're just thinking about the next destination. I think it struck me. I saw a documentary once about so they called tokus, like a reincarnation.
Yeah.
And it was actually a boy, a very famous toku. And as soon as he was discovered, he was like put in charge of a monastery of like hundreds or thousands of monks in Tibet. But he had been born in the West, so he was also fluent in English. And he was brought to a group of school children who were his same age. And so he's a tulku, like in charge of monasteries, trained in the suttas his whole life. And he's facing a group of students who are like going to public school. They're like third or fourth graders.
Hmm.
And the third or fourth graders were looking at him and like, oh, wow, it's so hard, your life. And he looks back at him and says, oh, really? Because I think your life is so hard. And that's very true. Like if I was to think of how much suffering you have, like going through public school, it's because you don't have a destination, you don't have a purpose, you don't quite know what you're doing, you don't have anything to focus on. So you feel every little bump, everything somebody says about you, every test that you fail feels like a disaster, right?
Mm. Kim has a question. I have no ability to answer this. I don't know, Bante, if you might Can you talk about the nada sound? It's an Ajahn Sumedho thing, the sound of silence. Do you know anything about the sound of silence from Ajahn Sumedho?
I do know because I started with Ajahn Amaro when he was abbot at Abhayagiri, and he's a disciple of Ajahn Sumedho. And rather than doing breath meditation like Ajahn Pasano, Ajahn Amaro liked to do the nada sound. So
Hmm.
what I understand, Ajahn Amaro liked to sit and to listen to the background sound. The way Ajahn Sumedho teaches it is you use that sound as a basis of mindfulness. It's present. It's always present. It's sort of like you close your eyes and you see a kind of background light. The noise is that for the ear. It's just a kind of backdrop, if you will, of static. And so you're just always keeping it in mind. And that way you have something to base your mindfulness on. As everything else is happening around you, you're just all part of you is always keeping that in the what we call the vichara or the periphery attention. The way Ajahn Amaro teaches it is to gradually listen to the highest frequency sounds you can hear. And so to use it as a way of bringing up energy, which I haven't tried it that way.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't quite, which might be helpful if you're having a problem with dozing off.
Kim is saying that Ajahn Amaro is where she first heard it as well.
He wrote a book about it, I guess, one of these free books.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that like of all the Thai forest, the alive Thai forest, Western teachers, Ajahn Sumedho comes up most often. People ask me like, "What does Ajahn Sumedho mean by this?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." This is like he has his own words for things. He has his own things. It's like, yeah, this is it's like you have to have a very specific knowledge uh, to understand what what Ajahn Sumedho means and what he says things like the sound of silence.
Yeah, I guess the nada sound is based off of a kind of yoga that pre-existed.
Hmm.
But I don't know if there's a biography. I've read something where Ajahn Sumedho talks about it happening. Maybe he just gave a talk about it. And it's just at a point in his practice, he just started to hear it and he had the insight, oh, there's this tinnitus, there's this sound. What if I use that for my mindfulness?
Hmm.
And so that was a really important milestone for him because then he could keep constant mindfulness throughout the day.
Actually, every once in a while, I get a question about tinnitus. Maybe I can point people towards the sound of silence. I sh-
But yeah, they say
See if that helps.
instruction, make it a feature.
Yeah, yeah. That's basically what I tell them. But this is, if it's already kind of talked about by the Ajahn, so that might be helpful for people. All right. Rick has a question. After making a determination to focus my practice on contentment, I have been getting blowback of defilements. Is this common? Bantes, how do we practice in this situation?
How are you practicing contentment?
Yeah, like
Because I mean, I think yeah, if you let us know some ideas of how you're trying, maybe that might make more sense.
because I think it's like last week or 2 weeks ago, Rick brought this up about, we're gonna start like working on contentment and things like that. And I spoke to him a little bit. So it'd be good for him to get your perspective on that.
Well, we've both done walking Tudong, and in the times when the Buddha talks about contentment, he's talking to an audience of monastics. And so he presents it as contentment with food, clothing, shelter, and medicine. And that's the context he uses contentment. So looking at what you have and asking the question, do I have enough? And if the answer is yes, then contentment is applicable. I don't know that he ever tries to apply that to money, because if you ask, do I have enough money, you would always say, well, I could use a little more.
All right, so we're just waiting to see if Rick is going to give us any further clarification or if any other questions come up. And if nothing, then maybe we'll read a sutta. I have a sutta chosen. Him saying the nada sound is easier than breath meditation.
I could say the same for myself. I think the one trick might be is maybe progression. So anapanasati, the breath meditation, is really well laid out, and there's landmarks for how it will develop. Nada sound is really not well laid out because it's a formless kind of meditation object. It's a signless kind of meditation object. You have a sound, but it's not an object. It's a background noise.
Hmm.
So I think it's sort of like growing your mindfulness, though it won't necessarily progress unless at some point you establish that mindfulness in the body. I don't know that it's taught that way because I think it's taught with the idea of, like in yoga, you have a formless abiding that you're kind of aiming for. Whereas in Buddhist meditation, you tend to establish yourself in mindfulness with form as an object, but then eventually get to the formless.
One of my core issues is being perpetually dissatisfied. It's related to Rick's practice of contentment. But I guess his wisdom in acknowledging that that's a core issue, it makes sense that he would want to focus on contentment. Certainly. And I think one of the things that I mentioned when we talked about this last week was, this is another issue where willpower can come into this, but it's as I always say, willpower is limited. You can't really force yourself to be content. You have to understand the dependent origination of contentment. Like what do you do to set the groundwork for contentment to arise? And then that becomes where your practice is. That becomes your focus. How do I set the groundwork for contentment? And you could do little things like practicing letting go and stuff like that. Practicing letting go of little things, either mentally or physically, to kind of train your mind in that, almost like training your mind in the desire to have less. Like that does exist. Like I remember, the year or two before I became a monk, I left for the monastery, and I was just kind of like, it felt good to just like, what can I let go of today?
Hey, do you want this? Hey, do you want
Yes,
this?
exactly. What do I not need anymore? Let me let go of that. Struggle most with being discontent with my productivity, never feeling I've done enough. And this is just for your own clarification in terms of answering this. Rick has a lot of like chronic conditions and illnesses and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I get it. My health has been crap for the last 12 years, quite a while. But I think We are actually doing uh, a round of studies on the matter of faith the last month, and this is the answer I kind of came to. Is people were looking at they were looking at their job, they were looking at their relationships, they were looking at their finances, and every time they found that they were attending to these things, they felt uncertain, they felt worried, they felt anxious, they felt insufficient, and that's actually to be expected. You know, you're paying attention to something that is uncertain, so you feel uncertain. And the notion of faith as a faculty is understanding that our mind is conditioned by what we're paying attention to. So when you pay attention to the practice and you're not paying attention to yourself, you tend to feel sufficient. You tend to feel satisfied because you're paying attention to something that is stable, something that is wholesome, something that is bright, something that inspires you. It gives you a sense of direction. And so this is something we can look at. You know, if we feel that sense of uncertainty, insufficiency, and doubt, we can ask what we've been paying attention to. And sometimes it's a matter of maybe we switch to something that inspires us for a time to build up that faith faculty. And that's when the path becomes smooth, whether or not there are bumps. You know, when what's in this sort of corner of your mind is, well, I'm still a Buddhist. So at least I still have a meditation practice. This isn't going well, but at least I'm keeping the precepts.
Yeah. All right. So why don't we do some sutta roulette? And so for those of you who don't know what this means, basically what's going to happen is today I think we're going to choose the Anguttara Nikaya. So what I'm going to do is ask for those of you who are here. That says there's 10 people here. We'll see how many people play the game. I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and then pick a number between 1 and 11. And that's going to be the first number. And then I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and pick a number between 1 and 50. And whoever's first, so then we're going to have, okay, Anguttara Nikaya 7.25. And then we're going to read that sutta. So that's what sutta roulette is. It's kind of a way of just kind of randomly coming across suttas. We don't know what it's going to be. We don't know what the topic is going to be. We don't know how impactful the sutta is going to be. We're just playing a little game, getting people active in reading the suttas. So let me block out the chat here. All right. So a number between 1 and 11 in 3, 2, 1, go. I don't know. Need some game show music or something. All right. So Kim is first with 4. So we are in Anguttara Nikaya 4, the Book of Fours. Oh yeah, Shay, that's right. This little game developed after you were gone, after you kind of went away for a while. So all right, so we're in Anguttara Nikaya 4s. And now a number between 1 and 50. Go. Da, na, 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 na. And I see, Rick, you have posted something, so we'll respond to that.
Yeah, 42.
42. So we are going to read Anguttara Nikaya 4.42. Oh, that's right. I should actually share the screen. That'll be helpful. So you can see. There we go. So for those of you, and this is also a really good game if for people who don't really have a good grasp of like how the suttas are laid out, right? So we can see the Anguttara Nikaya has 11 books, and the Anguttara Nikaya is grouped by numbers. So in the book of fours, it's going to be everything have to do with fours, four noble truths, four satipatthana, etc. So book of 11s, 11 factors of such and such. That's what the Anguttara Nikaya is um, broken down to. So we are in the book of fours and the first 50. I think we're going to stick in the first 50 because once it gets past like 50, 80, there can be lots of small suttas and things like that. So the first 50 is usually a good
42.
Yes, 42. All right. Of course, Sutta Central. Sutta Central is the best place to use. Even if you're not a fan of the Bhante Siddhartha's translations, there's other translations, but in terms of ease of use and maneuvering through the suttas, there's no better sutta out there, really. Chapter with Rohitassa, 442, ways of answering questions. Answering questions definitively, analytically, with a counter question or setting it aside. So we have Bhante Sujatas or Ajahn Jeff's translations. I like to use Bhante Sujatas translation, not necessarily because I always agree on how he translates things. It's because it's the only translation where you can have the Pali right there. And that is invaluable. That is the first time ever you could have the English and the Pali together on a page. And now they updated the word lookup so that basically every word can come up now, which is awesome. All right. So if you're wanting to learn some of the Pali and to be able to see the suttas in the Pali along with the English, it's great. Is anybody else lagging? Is the stream going a little wonky? We lost a bunch of people. Maybe there was some kind of something that happened. But let's read. Mendicants, there are these 4 ways of answering questions. What for? There is a question that should be answered categorically. There is a question that should be answered analytically. There's a question that should be answered with a counter question. There is a question that should be set aside. These are the 4 ways of answering questions. One is stated categorically, another analytically, a third with a counter question, a fourth is set aside. A mendicant who knows each of these, in line with good principles, is said to be skilled in the 4 kinds of questions. They're intimidating, hard to defeat, deep, and hard to crush. They're expert in both what the meaning is and what it isn't. Rejecting what is not the meaning, an astute person grasps the meaning. An attentive one, comprehending the meaning, is said to be astute. And yeah, this is because of Anguttara Nikaya, I was not expecting that the Buddha would actually kind of do a detailed kind of definition of what each one of these is. I don't know if that's even done at all in the suttas, to be honest with you. But the idea here, to me, for me, is that it takes skill and wisdom to know the right kind of question to ask and when to ask that right kind of question, right? So this is a skillful person is masterful at knowing the right kind of question to ask. I don't know, Bate, if you have.
Yeah. And also, I mean, it speaks to me of listening. Like you're being asked a question, but it sounds like the Buddha is saying we should really listen to the person
Yeah.
and try to figure out what they're looking for, what will supply what they need.
Yeah, well, being able to listen is very important knowing the right question, right? You're
Yeah.
getting that information. Yeah. Right. Anybody have any comments or clarifications on this suttas before we do another roulette?
Rick did have something up there right before the second round of.
Actually, yeah, we let's go back up to there. The intensity of feeling not enough fades when I show up in helping others with a heart of loving kindness. Yeah, helping other people can definitely help you. You also just have to be aware that that can also kind of be an escape too. You know, you kind of get lost in other people's problems to avoid your own. You just have to be aware of that balance. And but yes, helping other people can, you know, give you that kind of uplifting, that sila of reflecting on your good deeds.
Yeah, Sila Nusati is a great way of developing that sense of faith and stability, and things are okay. The Buddha actually gave was 6 recollections for householders. So Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, Sila, Chaga, which is generosity, and Devas. These are all good ways for establishing yourself and confidence.
There was a similar about 2 acrobats about that. Che, I'm assuming you don't mean like the famous one where the the acrobat's apprentice says, I'll watch after myself, you watch after yourself. Maybe there's another sutta with acrobats you're talking about. Because I don't know if, I guess on a shallow level they're connected. But not really fully, I don't think. All right, so let's do another one. A number between 1 and 11. In 3, 2, 1, go. Jay comes in with a 4. We're staying in the 4s, I guess.
Well, there's a lot of good suttas in the book.
Yeah. A number between 1 and 50. In 3, 2, 1, go. So wait, Jay got the first one. Okay, because Jay got the first one, we're going to go with Kim the second. But because of like internet, if the same person keeps being the first, I just, spread it out a little bit. So it's not the same person always choosing. So 4.9. All right. Book of Fours, verse 50. First group, the chapter out Where is Village? And scrolling down, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The arising of craving. This one has a Bhikkhu Bodhi translation, which is not the case. Most of Bhikkhu Bodhi, well, I think most are on here, but a large chunk of Bhikkhu Bodhi's translations are copywritten and owned by Wisdom Publications. So that's why you're not going to find them so easily on the internet unless you actually buy the book. But let's see, Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation is here, so we can use that.
Yeah, if that's 2012, that comes from his anthology. So it was before he finished the full Anguttara Nikaya.
Oh, that's true. Yes. Yeah.
Are you sharing?
Yes. 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 Bhikkhus, There are these four ways in which craving arises in a bhikkhu. What for? Craving arises in a bhikkhu because of robes, food, lodgings, or for the sake of life here or elsewhere. These are the four ways in which craving arises in a bhikkhu. With craving as companion, a person wanders during this long time, going from one state to another. He does not overcome samsara. Having known this danger, that craving and the origin of suffering, free from craving, devoid of grasping, a bhikkhu should wander mindfully. Hello, the autumn effect. I think that's a name I'm not familiar with. Are you joining us for the first time, or do I know you as another name outside of YouTube? But so we have this craving. I'm going to go ahead and say that there actually are more things than just four that can arise for a bhikkhu in terms of craving. But it makes sense that these are really related to. These are three out of the four basic requisites. Robes, alms, food, lodgings. The fourth one being medicine. That's not really mentioned here, but for the sake of for the sake of life here or elsewhere. So like decide, craving to maybe be a layperson again, or craving for a certain kind of rebirth, or etc.
Or even where you're going to stay the vasa.
Oh, that's true. That's true too. Where am I going to be? I want to go to that town. They always have the best food. Yeah. Let's wander towards that city because they have good food in that city. Yeah. And this is a kind of, maybe not like there's some comedy related to it, but it when you become a monastic, you're giving up so many things that you can like become attached to little things like, are we getting chocolate at night, or does my bowl have a certain hue to it that I like, or my robe is a certain way. Like you can kind of have the craving kind of gets transferred over towards your new life, right? And you can kind of get, you have to still be careful of the craving within that as well. Anything to add?
I mean, yeah, because craving exists independent of its object. So you can take away certain objects that you haven't taken away the craving. But in terms of it makes me think of contentment. So when the Buddha talks about contentment and the gradual training, it's one of the last things before samadhi. So it's not that you're supposed to sit there and no matter the circumstances, you're supposed to say, okay, I'm going to be content with this. You're actually supposed to develop contentment when you're already happy. You've got sila, you've got mindfulness, you've got, I skipped one, didn't I? And generosity was in there maybe. What is it? There's sila, there's, sense restraint.
Oh, the gradual training. Yeah.
And then once you have those things, the mind is bright, it's energized, it's happy. If you still aren't experiencing samadhi, if you've still got some lingering attachments, that's when you develop contentment, because it's easier to be content when you're actually happy. It's much harder to be content when you honestly don't have enough or things aren't going well.
And even I like to tell the story of my first robe, in terms of monastic craving, where the first robe that I had, I was still a samanera at this point, and maybe it was like a year I became a bhikkhu, or maybe I wasn't even a bhikkhu yet. I don't remember exactly, but the first katina that I came up to, the lay people wanted to give me a robe, and I had already started having patches on my robe, and I was like, so yes, I'm a rag robe ascetic. Like I was so, because like I was so like zealous, and I wanted to be like the monks in the suttas, the rag robe ascetics, and all that kind of stuff. And I was so attached to having patched up a robe that I didn't even want a new robe. And then it like dawned on me like, oh wait, I mean, maybe this is more wholesome craving than other cravings, but you still have this attachment and this craving to want to have this, these rag robes where you have these people out of faith who want to give you a robe. I said, okay, I'm gonna let go of the rag robes. I'll take the new robe. And even since then, this is probably my fifth or sixth robe, and wearing robes for 9 years, something like that. And I had to let the last one go because I had 5 or 6 patches on it, and the whole thing was so thin that it was just every day was a new rip. So I was like, okay, it's time to let go of that one. Because I have this robe offered to me. So, oh yeah. All right.
I think there might have been another bit of lag.
Kim says that's a great story. Yeah. Yeah. I have a fair decent amount of Bante J's an idiot stories that I like to share about my own craving and my own path. Gets a nice laugh out of some people. So I think what we will do, we have some time. We'll do a meditation for about 20 minutes or so soon. But I think I want to now do the other type of roulette, which was first offered to us by our friend Karuna. Those of you who are Empty Cloud people, you know Karuna. And Karuna's a supporter of Maggasekha. She's usually on the channels, although I haven't seen her in a while, and that's okay. But she one day decided we should do a word roulette. And we tried it a couple of times. Okay, this is great because this. So as you'll see, this is even more random than the numbers. So we're going to do 3, 2, 1, and you're just going to type a random word. Obviously, keep it wholesome. It could be just really just random. It doesn't have to be even like, oh, maybe I have to think about a sutta. As long as it's a wholesome word, it's not going to be anything, that's going to have the stream taken down or something like that. You can type that random word in, and then we'll put it in the Sutta Central search and see what comes up. So 3, 2, 1, type a random word. A random skillful word that comes to mind. In the past, we've had things like spoon,
Drop.
drop,
Drop,
dust, heat. And unlike the other ones where we have a specific number, we can actually look up all these different words and see. This one is not whoever's first.
I think the Dhammapada, drop by drop, the bucket is filled.
Yeah. I think drop will probably come up with a couple different suttas. All right.
Like a drop from a lotus leaf.
A lump of salt, salt crystal. So we have a bunch of different options. I'm trying to see if we do have, there it is. Drop by drop is the water pot filled. There's Dhammapada. I think we actually did pop a section of the Dhammapada two Dhammapaloozas ago, something like that. Let's check out this lump of salt. Let's see what this says. Oh, this is a big one.
Yeah.
Even though it's Anguttara Nikaya. Let's do a search. Ah, this is a very important sutta, a very important simile. So suppose a person was to drop a lump of salt into a mug of water. What do you think, mendicants? Would that small bowl of water become salty and undrinkable? Yes, sir. Why is that? Because there is only a little water in that bowl. Suppose a person were to drop a lump of salt in the Ganges River, the Ganga. What do you think, mendicants? Would the Ganges River be salty and undrinkable? No, sir. Why is that? Because the Ganges River is a vast mass of water, and it really is. It's like way wider than I than I thought when I first saw it. I was like, it is a huge river. But and this is how a person. This is how it is in the case that a person who does a trivial bad deed, but it lands them in hell. But another person who does the same trivial bad deed, but experiences in this present life without even a little bit left over. So basically, the idea here, this is a very famous simile of if you have good, skillful action the size of the Ganges River, the Ganga, as they would say in India, then few unskillful is like some drops in the Ganges. But if you have lots of unskillfulness, you know, it's like trying to put some, and you're trying to do a few good things. It's like, trying to put it in the little cup, basically. It's like, it's the idea of dilution and like the impact that it makes. Um, you know, so if you have lots of unskillfulness and you put a few little drops in there, it's not going to actually do anything. It's okay, it's not bad, but that's the idea. The idea is the simile. Um, Anything?
Well, I think the paragraph right before the simile,
Let's see.
was it about?
A person who has developed their physical endurance, ethics, mind, and wisdom, they're not small minded, but are big hearted, living without limits. That kind of person does the same trivial bad deed, but experience it in the present life without even a bit left over, not to speak of a lot. So the idea is that because the person already has this like kind of this mountain of goodness, they have to experience what they did, but it's going to be trivial. They're not going to hell over it. They're going to experience it as some kind of misfortune in this life, and probably not even a huge amount.
Yeah, and it's a very different relationship to consequences. When your mind is big enough to kind of accept, oh, I did this bad thing. There are consequences, and you accept that. The consequences actually seem quite minor because you accept them and you're willing to just work through them. Whereas if you try to run away from consequences, you could legitimately run your whole life. Like you're not going to get away from them. The idea of karma being that eventually you will get the consequences of your actions. So it's you see this in law, right? So you have a trial, and you have two people who did the same crime will get to the end of the trial. One of them pleads guilty and says, "Yeah, I did it. It was wrong. I feel really awful." And you have one who fights it, who lies, who tries everything to get out of the consequences. If they're both convicted, what is the judge going to do during sentencing? Well, the one who accepts what they did and they want to make amends and they want to be rehabilitated, they're going to get a lighter penalty.
Yeah. Now, actually, I have that experience in my own life. I've experienced that. I was stupid. I was during my endurance event days. I had been up for 24 hours and I was driving, and I actually briefly fell asleep behind the wheel and I caused an accident. Thankfully, it was a very minor accident. We weren't going fast. It wasn't on a major road. But when I went in front of the judge, I said, I was stupid. I take full responsibility. This is what happened and this is what I did. And I just made a huge mistake. And the judge was like, okay, well, since you have basically a perfect record, you've never done anything, bad or whatever, I'm just going to drop it. So, I mean, obviously it hurt my insurance and everything, which it should have, but because of my honesty I didn't like go in and try because I mean I've been to court so many times. There's so many different things, mostly because of my work, not because of
Yeah, yeah.
in my youth I went to court a couple of times because of traffic stuff. But and like having I knew that even though it was gonna hurt, I was gonna go, oh God, I have to fully admit that I did this stupid thing. Um, I knew that it would, in the end, be better for me.
Mhm.
Even if I didn't, even if I did get some kind of penalty, it would be better off in the end. I was a Buddhist by this point for years. And, it wasn't like a brand new Buddhist. I was like already at the point where I, decided I need to make amends for this in accordance with the Dhamma and, take whatever punishment is coming to me. And, because of my goodness and honesty, it paid off. So, uh, Shay says, almost like we accumulate more bad karma if we resist to do our time.
Yeah, or at the very least we drag it out. It was and because that's an understanding of the mental suffering that comes with things. If you could get the full penalty right away, and then you don't have to think about it, versus if you worry about it and run from it day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, that's a lot more suffering mentally.
Yeah. All right. So we are at 8. And we usually end about 8:30ish. So why don't we do a guided meditation for about 20 minutes or so? And, Bante, if that's something that you're interested in, I'll invite you to do it. I'll do it either way. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do it. All right.
Your show.
Yeah. Let's see if these cushions, the only cushions they have here are these big, really mushy cushions that don't do much.
Yeah, it's very not
That actually cause me more suffering than help. But we'll try. All right, friends. Oh, close your eyes, set your body up in whatever comfortable and stable position works for you. Start by doing the mindful scan of the body. Pretty much everybody here has heard my guided meditations many times. I don't need to explain in detail. Starting from the feet, moving up to the head, setting your body up in a stable and comfortable position. Whenever you're ready, take the 3 deep breaths. Bring your focus to the body, breathing in and breathing out. Remember that your job is to just observe and abide with the breath. Do your best to try not to manipulate or control it. Remember that the breath doesn't need you to do its job. Even when you're not paying attention, the body is breathing. Because if it doesn't, you'll know really quickly. So just let the body do its thing. Try to be the one who observes and investigates it. The body breathing in and out, in and out. Remember every time you sit to meditate to lay down your burdens. Put down the heavy backpack in which you hold all of your mental and physical baggage. You hold up the world on your shoulders. Put down your burden and follow the breath. Remember, whenever you're distracted away from the breath, acknowledge that you've been distracted away. Try to come back to full focus and mindfulness. Practice letting go of the distraction if it's still there, by not getting agitated and pushing it away, nor by continuing to be excited and clinging to it. And then once you've let go, return to the breath. Whenever you're distracted away, acknowledge, let go, and return. Acknowledge, let go, and return. Always come back to the breath. Its home base. Always there, doing its thing, ready for you to follow it towards a more calm and tranquil line. Slowly start to open your eyes, becoming aware of the room around you, your body's position in it, reflecting on the state of your mind before and after the meditation, and contemplating any experiences that stood out during your practice. While you do that, I'll read some Dhammapada before we close out for the night. We are on old age. When this world is ever ablaze, why this laughter? Why this jubilation? Shrouded in darkness, will you not see the light? Behold this body, a painted image, a mass of heaped up sores, infirm, full of hankering, of which nothing is lasting or stable. Fully worn out is this body, a nest of disease and fragile. This foul mass breaks up, for death is the end of life. These dove-colored bones are like gourds that lie scattered about in autumn. Having seen them, how can one seek the light? This city, the body, is built of bones, plastered with flesh and blood. Within are decay and death, pride and jealousy. Even gorgeous royal chariots wear out, and indeed this body too wears out. But the Dhamma of the good does not age. Thus the good make it known to be the good. The man of little learning grows old like a bull. He grows only in bulk, but his wisdom does not grow. Through many a birth in samsara have I wandered in vain, seeking the builder of this house. Repeated birth is indeed suffering. O house builder, you are seen. You will not build this house again, for your rafters are broken and your ridgepole shattered. My mind has reached the unconditioned. I have attained the destruction of craving. Those who in youth have not led the holy life, or have failed to acquire wealth, languish like old cranes in the pond without fish. Those who in youth have not led the holy life, or have failed to acquire wealth, lie sighing over the past, like worn out arrows shot from a bow. All right. So, Bante, you still upravana.org? All right. So, everybody here knows my website already, but if you're interested in checking out Bante, you can go to his website, which is on the screen right now. Do you have any you want to say about any streams that you do or any activities or whatever?
Yeah, every Wednesday we have a chat on Zoom. It's kind of like this format. Yeah, we did about an hour chat and then an hour meditation. And we've been trying to get the Apositas up and running again for the new year. So you can, the webpage has the dates for those.
All right. So if you're interested in joining Bante, you can do that. Bante has also, for many years, was part of the Maggasekha Discord, and he would be part of our weekly sutta readings. These days, he's doing his own thing, which is totally understandable.
Yeah, just a bit
So-
less sign-ins to all the different.
Yeah. All right. Okay, friends. Well, I think that's good. So we are reached the end of another Dhammapalooza. Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy and at ease. Practice well and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again, which, if I'm alive, well, could be tomorrow morning for morning monastery experience at 8 a.m. Or maybe next Monday for another Dhammapalooza. Have a good week.